Teachta Pauline Tully.
Laskin Corla. Is to ask you what actions are being taken to ensure, as far as possible, the safety and security of members of the Defence Forces taking part in Unifil peacekeeping duties.
I would again like to take this opportunity to reiterate that the safety and security of Ireland's Defence Forces personnel stationed in Lebanon remain of paramount concern to myself and to the Government. And I want to pay tribute to all our Defence Force personnel in Lebanon for their exceptional work, their professionalism, their resilience, and also conscious of their families here at home who are very anxious and very, very concerned at the situation in Lebanon. And that's very understandable. And, but the House can be reassured that I've made and will continue to make the Government's concern on IDF activity, Israeli activity in Lebanon clear, both bilaterally to Israel and to United Nations headquarters, as well as via European Union and other channels. IDF actions over the last number of weeks towards Unifil peacekeepers have caused deep concern and outrage to both myself and the Government, and I've been very clear that it is reprehensible and unacceptable to injure peacekeepers and to put them in harm's way. I and the Government condemn these incidents in the strongest possible terms. I've been in direct contact with the United Nations on this issue. I've spoken directly with the UN Under-Secretary General responsible for UN peacekeeping, Jean-Pierre Lacroix, on a number of occasions. And during the calls, I took the opportunity to raise my serious concern about the deteriorating situation in southern Lebanon and to emphasise the Government's expectation that Unifil's role and mandate and the safety of peacekeepers should be fully respected by all parties. 2 specific diplomatic protests have been made to UNHQ and to Israel in the last 10 days regarding an IDF presence now departed beside an Irish Unifil outpost. Similar action will be taken at diplomatic level in the future in the event of further incidents of this nature. I have also reminded Israel of its obligation to protect peacekeepers and have highlighted also that the IDF's actions are in breach of international humanitarian law and that there is a need for full accountability for any actions taken. On Monday, the Taoiseach spoke by phone with Israeli President Herzog to relay the Government's serious concerns and to emphasise the Government's expectation that Unifil's role and mandate be fully respected at all times. The deliberate firing at Unifil's post is outrageous and totally unacceptable breach of international law. Yesterday we had a meeting of all defence ministers of the 16 EU contributing countries and all made it very, very clear that such attacks are a violation and represent a violation of international humanitarian law. And at the European Union Foreign Affairs Council earlier in the week, we issued a statement, again condemning this action. And also, prior to that, over the last weekend, 34 Unifil contributing countries, including Ireland, issued a statement condemning the recent incidents and calling for Israel to respect Unifil's mission and ensure the safety of peacekeepers. The Taoiseach has also spoken to the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. In terms of that safety and security of personnel, I've been advised that all Irish personnel remain in place in Unifil positions and that all are accounted for and well. All Defence Forces personnel continue to comply with UN security precautions, including taking shelter in protected positions as and when required. I also wish to reassure the Deputy that ongoing risk assessments are carried out in the mission area and personal equipment and force assets are continually reviewed so that Defence Forces personnel are appropriately equipped to fulfil their role and support their safety. Unfortunately, no mission is without danger, but based on the military advice I have received, I am satisfied that all appropriate security measures are in place to provide for the safety of all Defence Forces personnel serving with Unifil.
And look, I want to take this opportunity to pay tribute to all members of the Defence Forces serving in Lebanon and to their families, for it's an extremely worrying time at this stage. And, you know, I note that, okay, it's important that all of the different European states affected come together and call out the actions, but I think action is needed, because Israel are just ignoring any words that are calling out what they've been doing. I mean, we had incidents back a few decades ago in the 80s where some of the troops were actually kidnapped at that stage. We don't want to see any of our troops coming to harm, and I'm particularly worried about the troops that are at the outposts. And I was informed that some troops returned to Ireland on scheduled leave recently. Were all of them able to return? Are they at full strength there? Or is there pressure on those then, as a result, if they're not, to carry out the duties? Also, in relation to rationing, and again, I'm not talking about Camp Shamrock, I'm talking about at the outpost, rationing, the rations going in to them, that there's a concern that it's not fresh supply, and it's fresh water getting in, it's fresh food getting in. I know sometimes it may only be the dried variation, but that's okay for a day or two, but it's not okay on a long-term basis.
The food and water situation in Unifil. The Defence Forces have advised that there are sufficient supplies of both water and food in Camp Shamrock, as well as the availability of contingency food packs, and that further deliveries were made to Camp Shamrock over the last weekend. And this is in addition to a contingency supply chain in place to allow all of Unifil to remain in place for up to 30 days. So during the summer, in advance of all of this, the Defence Forces had shipped out and had secured locally as well supplies and provided up to 30 days contingency supply in the event of something like this happening. So there was good proactive planning by our military leadership in that regard, particularly during the summer period. And in terms of the rotation of those on leave, Unifil have suspended all movements for now, for the moment, but that is constantly under review. So we're less than 300 in theatre at the moment, and I can get you the precise figures of those who are out of theatre. 20% would be, on leave at different times and so on.
Suspended from now on, but it's just the ones on leave. Did they get to return? I mean, I'm just wondering.
They haven't yet. No.
Haven't. So there could be pressure, there could be under-resourced there, and that would be a concern. Also, I know the supplies are going into Camp Shamrock, but are they getting to the people who are in the outposts? That's the one that's concerned, because we saw the footage of the Israeli tanks surrounding the outposts, and it's very, very, very scary. And it's just to ensure that they're safe and that they're looked after. And I'm presuming that, of course, as you said, that there are constant monitoring of what's happening and plans in place to take action if needed be to move them out of there, which we just want to ensure that they are safe. But Israel is, from what I can see, not listening to anybody, and I think some action needs to be taken against Israel, very strong action, to ensure that they do stop this genocide in Gaza, in Lebanon, and, as I said, the breaches of international humanitarian law.
Yeah. As I said, both leave and travel to and out of the mission area is currently restricted due to the security issues, and that's, I think, understandable. Likewise, planning continues in terms of the November rotation, and in terms of UNP 652, which is one of our outposts that we lead, and 650 would be Polish soldiers, who we also lead in terms of the Irish Polbat scenarios there. So that will be a matter for Force Commander. They have supplies for close to 3 weeks still in the outpost, but that will be an issue that will require to be negotiated safe passage for further supplies to that outpost, and that's something that the Force Commander on the ground will engage in with others, and we have to do it in a way that's safe and secure.